We're excited to talk about the Bible and want to be faithful to examine as much of the text as possible. Unfortunately, we can't cover everything in a Sunday sermon, and lots of study and material get left on the cutting room floor. These episodes are our attempt to continue the conversation and cover as much of the Bible as we can. So welcome to the cutting room floor.
Glad that you're with us. We've got a couple of guests with us hanging out. Thank you guys for coming and being here. We've already had some really good discussion and conversation that's been started up. We're gonna continue on, I think, with some of that conversation, and we'll get to some of the passages that we have. We'll do our best to stick into our time frame here. While I'm looking up one of the answers to the question here, do you want to start maybe looking at the next thing that we're going to look at?
Yeah. So where I kind of want to sit at the beginning is we kind of ended on our 10 Commandments. Well, not ended. We touched on 10 Commandments on Sunday, and that kind of end caps chapter 20.
Yeah.
And we made a quick jump over to 24. Is that where
Yes, we did.
So, just to be very clear, like, we're not doing a chapter by chapter study, but we did skip a chunk. And
we did.
I think it is important to point out, if you are following along in our study, or if you have gone back and done the reading, that these aren't passages that we skip because they're uncomfortable or challenging or any of that stuff.
Right.
But I kind of wanted to bounce off of you. We get these 10 commandments that seem very straightforward and cut and dry, as far as, like, we can all agree that these sound good and honorable things to do for one another in the Lord. Is 21 through 23 a more specified list of, at least when I was reading it, I was like, okay, these kind of seem like maybe not even examples, but like instances where, well, what does it look like to do these things?
You're nailing it.
Yeah,
You're nailing it.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So do you mind if I read just a couple things real
Please,
quick?
yeah.
And then we'll address maybe some of the content of these particular chapters that
Sure,
you're talking about. I'm going to read you a part of the sermon that I'm going to deliver this Sunday, because I can't think of a better way to say it. The 10 Commandments are foundational. They are foundational core commands of the Mosaic Covenant. They are unique because God spoke them directly to the people and wrote them on stone tablets. In Exodus 4, we find out that God identifies Israel as his son. The 10 Commandments are a personal declaration that reveals Yahweh's character. They are designed to form Israel into the image of the Father. They are the distillation of how God's son will obey him. So the question then becomes, what about the other laws? Okay. Or the other instructions, the Torah. Okay. The other laws are applications, which is what you were just indicating. Are these instances in which this thing plays out?
So
the specific laws in Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers are applications and elaborations of the 10 Commandments. For example, the commandment against murder, theft, and coveting are working out in detail through the civil and ceremonial laws that govern a wide range of social, economic, and religious life in Israel. So that's what I'm going to say this Sunday.
Show the spirit of the law.
Yes, and that doesn't mean that there's a ranking hierarchy of 10 commandments are greater and the other laws are less important or something like that. Because and nor should we start cutting them. Okay, 10 commandments, then moral, then civil, then ceremonial, or whatever. No, it's my conviction that they're all one unified covenant package. Okay? The 10 Commandments represent the core. In the same way that love God and neighbor would be the core of the new covenant, but then maybe an elaboration of that, an application of that would be, go into your prayer closet and pray by yourself.
So can I pose it this way?
Yeah.
Not too long ago in Exodus, we were reading about how the people were coming to Moses, and his father-in-law Jethro said, you should appoint some officials to help you do this job, delegate it. Yeah. There's almost this tiered down, depending on what type of issue or how many people involved, that kind of thing. 10 Commandments, solid block.
Yep.
Are these next 3 chapters, as well as Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers.
Yeah.
Not only examples, but possibly examples of people who are like, hey, Moses, we have this issue or petition. What does it look like in this particular confrontation or in this particular practice?
Right.
What does it look like to uphold, I guess, the covenant and the 10 Commandments? Is that what Moses is dealing with? I know it's not framed like that specifically, like, hey, here's
Yeah.
all the stuff that they came to him and gave him questions about.
Yeah.
But is that kind of what we're dealing with? Because, I mean, me as a Christian, like, yes, I believe that the Bible holds wisdom for every human interaction. Am I going to find specific examples to every human interaction in there? No, I'm not. So, in that way, I have to apply the wisdom of what I get here
Correct.
to accomplish upholding things like the Ten Commandments.
Correct. And so, that's well stated. We know this intuitively. We know this intuitively. You have a law on the books, but not every circumstance or situation is covered by the law. 60 miles an hour doesn't account for what if it's an emergency and the police is escorting me. You get what I'm trying to say?
Right.
It doesn't account for ice on the road. You don't have to go 60 just because it says 60 miles an hour. It's exactly right. So the stipulation or the application, as we want to say, maybe these other laws are. I don't want to go so far as to say maybe these are questions that Moses is fielding that then he's writing down. I want to say that these are the way that God wants to arrange this particular people at this particular time to reveal himself in this particular way.
Okay, I like this particular people at this particular time because that's very helpful for, I mean, we don't have to go through any of these one by one, but there are plenty of things in here that if we were to say like, well, now my conduct will look like this specifically,
Right.
would become regressive.
Yes, if I tried to follow these particular laws today, for instance.
Yes. Now, and also if I'm reading my Bible through that lens, then I'm not respecting the text for what it is.
Correct.
So it is speaking to a time and a culture that though these things do make me bristle, and I think that they should, in their time and their place, were liberative. Is that the right word?
It's not a bad word.
Were for the preservation of value. I have a note somewhere in my Bible. I'd have to find it. But just, am I making sense of that? Can you say that clearer?
Yeah. So when we come to, laws about how you own people, servants and slaves.
Yeah.
And that's tough, man. And when it comes to like laws about, the particular way that you're supposed to grill your wife, whether or not she's been unfaithful. And it has to do with going and getting a drink and going to the so-and-so person.
Wild.
There's a lot of stuff like that going on in here. We should read those and we should discern within their context how those would have resonated with the people. Because again, utilizing my modern framework only happens as a result of the New Testament,
right?
And the way that Christians have developed law, morality, ethic, based upon what they find through Jesus,
right?
And what they find in the Old Testament, as a matter of fact, because it's not just in the New Testament that we find a new set of commandments.
Right.
We find the old commandments fulfilled, and so what Jesus is giving us, and what our Christian heritage has given us. It does give us uncomfortable eyes to come and read, these particular things. But again, I have to read these particular things within their context to make sense of how the story progresses, so that when Jesus arrives on the scene, why is it that he doesn't just say, just do the law. Yeah. Just do that. Yeah. We already told you what you're supposed to do. And why is it that Christians don't remain, for instance, ancient first century Jews? Right. Because the law was inadequate by itself to do those things. But either way, I'm kind of chasing something else there. Let me stick to the question at hand. These laws seem regressive to us. They're very part and parcel of the day, and at times very progressive for the day.
Which I think, we need to do our due diligence to examine the context and all that stuff, which also paints a very horrifying and scary picture of the ancient world. Yeah. If things like this, when we're dealing with, the value of individuals in slavery or women or whatever, low status things that we don't want to have any, I guess that's hard for me to contextualize. Yeah. That these practices become a framework that prevent particular abuses
Yes.
in light of how dark the world around them is
Correct.
at their time, if that
Correct.
makes sense.
Yes.
So in that sense, we just kind of had a recording conversation over what is the law and the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
The aim of the law is to you said it earlier.
Well, it's to train people. It's to point people to, yes, their need for God, but it's also to display God's wisdom. A part of the issue that we have as humanity is our vision problem. And if we don't have, how about this? The Garden of Eden and every story since then
Right.
in the Bible keeps pointing us to this reality that if God's not standing there right next to the person, helping them make the right decision, we're generally going to err. Again, generally going to err. There are certainly those who don't. Noah's righteous in his generation. Enoch's a pretty good guy that walks with God. He was no more. Okay, so we have people that aren't, that aren't completely compromised in maybe like the sense of like Lamech or Cain or someone like that. Righteous Abel, people like that. Okay. But by and large, what we see from Genesis on is when God's not literally standing next to me,
Yeah.
I lack the wisdom necessary to chart on a relationally honorable course, or an honorably relational course. Maybe that's the right way to say it.
Yeah.
Because that's what God's after. We don't need any commands in the garden other than the one, because we're in relationship with God. We're in right relationship with Him. So, but the old covenant, or the old Mosaic covenant, and the laws that are contained within it are showing us is that God needs these people to follow this particular relational path. And for now, this is what's necessary. But even Moses realizes it's not enough.
Yeah.
Even in their own day.
Yeah.
Even in their own day, they change some of the laws to reflect a new application one book later.
Yeah.
So the law is not this final. The Ten Commandments have that kind of vibe to them.
Yeah.
Because again, they're written in God's hand. They're given to the people. They have maybe a transcultural vibe to them.
Right.
Okay?
While these other laws should reflect
Correct.
the Ten Commandments.
Correct. And again, I don't want to hierarchy that. I'm not trying to do that, because I think it's all one unified covenant.
Say reflect is probably the way to.
Yeah, that's a good way.
I
like that word.
Frame it.
Because they're sharing the same light.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the idea. So one is not greater than the other. Now, but this is the game that the Pharisees were playing in the time of Jesus.
Yeah.
Is they ranked all 613 of them. And Jesus kind of just passes over that game altogether.
Yeah.
And he says, no, the whole law is fulfilled in these two commandments. Because, why? Because they chart on the honorably relational way that humans are supposed to live with one another. So when I come to these Hebrew, servants, and treating servants like property, and I'm saying servants because my NIV says it, but slaves is the right word too. So please don't mishear me. I'm not trying to soften the Old Testament. When we come to those, we have to understand that the purpose of God is to update the wisdom of the people and the way they're supposed to treat their own slaves. The question is, well, why should they even have slaves in the first place?
Right. Which
would come back to the particular time, particular people.
Yeah, which I think is more important in conversation than we'd even think of at first blush. And this is something I've realized even over the past year. You've preached on tough topics. I've preached on tough topics.
Yeah.
And the rewarding thing at the end of that isn't just that you learn the context and all this, makes you bristle a little bit less, but we've had people in the church who say like, hey, it's verses like that made me want to close the Bible and decide Christianity is not for me. Yeah. And you're like, okay,
I totally get it.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, like, and I've been there too. Yep. So it's like, if there's something that gives you pause in here, then guess what? It's time to do some study work, That's it's time to zoom out and look at the whole, and see what it is that God is accomplishing through these ordinances that he puts in front of his people.
That's right. That's right. And they are important. They do display wisdom. And actually, the more that you discover the context of these, the more you realize, oh, wow. So like in contrast to the cultures around them, the Hebrews lived this way. Like, it's such an update that they even did that.
And they would, not just that we can look at them in contrast to their neighbors would look at them differently.
That's the whole purpose, in fact.
Yes. Which
That's
I think
the
we talked
purpose.
about a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
So
So we're not skipping over this.
well, that was my point, is that we didn't skip it because
Yeah, 'cause we're
it's
uncomfortable
tricky
about
or sticky or anything like that. It is a real invitation to, when you come across passages like this, to dig down in your study or come talk to David, or you have resources and stuff. We're not alone in the way that we interface.
And we're not hiding from these passages. We've talked about them a lot in the last year, I would say. A lot in the last year. One thing I want to say that we have said in the last year is that this is not God's final ideal. And we need to keep that in front of us.
Yeah.
Like this is not God's final ideal. The more that we can realize that the law of God is really not even a great translation. The instruction of God here for this particular people in this particular time is not the final instruction for all believers for all of time.
Right.
Okay. So there is maybe a heartbeat that is for all people of all time. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Deuteronomy 6. That's the same thing that Jesus will quote later on. Leviticus 19:4. I believe it's 4, where you're to love your neighbor as yourself. And if I'm quoting the passage wrong, it's just because I'm flowing off the top of head. Who knows if I just quoted Leviticus 19:4 and it's some awful, atrocious thing. Okay, don't judge me on that. But it is in Leviticus 19 where you're to love your neighbor as yourself. So the whole point of that, though, is that those capture the honorably relational way in which we're to chart upon God's covenants. But again, what does that mean? It means I have faith in God. I have trust with him. I am one of his people and he is my God. It's his desire. It's Eden 2.0, right? Or not 2.0. It is Eden. That's the vision of the Eden, that I will be their God and they will be my people. And how does that happen? Through right relationship. And so maybe the law can be summed up in those ideas, but again, it's only because those ideas are charting along God's purpose and desire. And so the final ideal of God is not stated in Exodus or Leviticus or Deuteronomy or Numbers. The ideal as it exists at that moment is being stated, but not the final ideal. Or maybe I shouldn't even say it that way.
Yeah.
A progression towards the ideal
Yeah.
is happening maybe in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
But we're still looking for the final ideal,
Right.
which is Revelation 21 and 22.
Yeah.
So, where we're in physical where exile ends.
Right. Yeah. So what the law is doing in that sense is it is directing us towards God.
Very well said. Very well said.
And directing us to seek wisdom for right living between God and our neighbor and all that stuff.
Because it turns out, and I'm going to give a big preview. It turns out that the law was never the point. The Spirit leading us by wisdom was the point. Okay, that's the bit that I'll say. That's the one thing I'll say, and I'll leave it.
Great. So, yeah, I don't really feel like we have to peel through these one by one. I don't really want to.
And by the way, if someone is curious, though,
that is the invitation, though.
That is the invitation, is that you can communicate with us. And I have a fantastic book by William, I think his name is William Webb.
William J. Webb, yeah.
That I would recommend. The title's a little provocative.
It is.
But the material and the way he handles the subjects is very careful, very thoughtful. So,
and respectful
and all of those things. I think the title is Slaves, Women, and Homosexuals.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So that might scare somebody, but I promise you the way they handle the material in the book is very well done.
Yeah. Anytime I've talked to someone about that book, they go, "Whew."
Yeah, don't want to read that. We'll get past the title. Yeah. And the content of the book is actually very, very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw that on my nightstand. Why do you have this book? And then I read about the hermeneutics or whatever.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, now that we're talking about them for a moment, we should just say what I just mentioned is actually coming not only from their work, but they are a really good distilled voice on this hermeneutic, which is that we can't just talk about creation, fall, and redemption. We also have to talk about renewal. Yeah.
Which also, I mean, I think he did a great job in that book too of calling into question, like, hey, if this is what it's doing in their day,
right,
and if there is a ideal down the road, well, where you are right now, are you in perfect right standing with God? Like, of course no, we've kicked the ball, 2 feet down the line.
That's right.
We are also seeking the wisdom of the Lord.
That's it. We're seeking the wisdom of the Lord, and we need His presence in order to do that. And so, and so we would use what they call a renewal hermeneutic, I believe, and I could be missing a word in there somewhere, but it's a renewal hermeneutic. In other words, if I'm looking for the final ideal of God, for instance, Paul says stuff like all the time. Jesus says stuff. Don't worry about tomorrow. You kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to not do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm growing in the wisdom to know what's the difference between anxiety and concern. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like thoughtful planning versus controlling planning. You know, I'm growing in that wisdom. But like, yeah, Jesus has stuff that messes with my categories all the time. Like, we're not in the ideal yet.
Yeah.
I'm not ideal yet.
Well, okay, and let me say one more thing about that book by William J. Webb is that I think it does a good job of not bridging the gap, but if you wanted to play two extremes with like, well, how do we deal with the law of the Bible?
Yeah.
You know, is it that, well, all Christians right now should be upholding every letter of
Right,
the law?
right.
Or is it, well, is he arguing then that we're heading towards a ultra progressive anything goes angle?
Correct.
And it's like, well, it's neither of those
It's neither
is
of
the
those.
answer.
Yeah.
And the way that you engage with the text is what directs you.
Yes, well said.
Yeah.
Very well said.
So there are resources for tricky
Yeah.
topics like that.
So it's interesting. I think you said something like, and correct me if I'm wrong, within the Old Testament, the law is evolving. Did you say that?
Maybe I did.
Okay.
How do you feel about that term?
Well, I was wondering, when you said that, it made me think, okay, where are the examples of that? And maybe you'd have to, maybe one comes right to Devin's mind.
Come on.
Give me an example, Devin.
Okay, so
Hold on,
just
let's
to
reset the-
repeat.
yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
This is on topic, if not again.
No, it is.
Do you
it
want to
is.
repeat his question?
Yeah. The question was, I won't say exactly, but the question is something to the tune of, you talked about the law evolving, and maybe that's not the exact word I used, but it's something to that effect, that the law itself changes, even within itself. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I say within itself, I mean the law is not just Leviticus. The law happens throughout the narrative. It happens in Exodus. It happens in Numbers. It happens in Deuteronomy. So it's kind of all over. So that's kind of the point. So he's asking, you say the law evolves. When would we find examples of that occurring?
So I think the word that I would choose instead of evolve would be like, well, there are addendas.
Yeah,
Is that maybe the better way to put it?
addendum
So-
an application and elaboration.
Yeah.
This is maybe the best way to put it.
That sounds less controversial.
It
Yeah.
does, yeah. That's less fiery language. Don't dismantle it, Jim, before we're done talking about it. Don't do that. But an example of that would be, I believe it's in Deuteronomy. There's land provision things.
I think it's in
successors.
Numbers.
Numbers. Sorry, thank you. See, he's the pastor.
I'll look it up because I don't know the passage.
Yeah, and you even know what I'm going to reference. That's
think
great.
I do.
So what happens is you have this is who succeeds the land after, dad dies or whatever, an inheritance thing. And it goes to the firstborn son or the sons or whatever. And you get these 5 sisters who approach Moses and they say, hey, we have no male heirs or relatives. And so do we already have a kinsman redeemer thing set up at this point?
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
and they're outside of that category. We have none. And they go to Moses and they say like, what do we do in this instance? Now, if they were just like, tough luck, it was like, okay, then we'd be looking at like, hey, there is no provision for women within this circumstance. But instead, Moses withdraws. He goes and meets with the Lord, comes back down, and he's like, yeah, there is inheritance for women.
For women.
And you're like, great.
Yeah.
We're moving up.
Yep.
So,
Originally, the law just specified inheritance for male heir.
Correct.
And then in Numbers.
But what if?
what if? And so that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, okay, is the Bible going to give me wisdom for every human interaction? Yes. Is it going to address every human interaction specifically? No. But will it direct me to the right conclusion? Yes.
Correct. So that is Numbers 27, by the way. Numbers 27, 1 through 11. And then there's even another instance where the people come and they ask, Moses, we were ceremonially unclean, not in a negative
Yeah.
way, but they're unclean during the time of Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
No, sorry, Passover.
Yeah.
During the time of Passover. I apologize. Go ahead if you want to.
Oh no, I'm just saying that they. Well, why don't you finish that thought?
So there's some people that are unclean during the time of Passover, and they won't be ceremonially clean to celebrate the Passover, which we found out is an everlasting, observance that every Israelite is supposed to observe. And if you don't observe it, you are cut off. So now what? How are these people going? So, okay, there's another moment in which an elaboration and application are made to accommodate this particular situation. And again, it's not simply that God just updates a new law and that's the thing we care about. No, it's that God's spirit indicates or God's wisdom indicates to Moses that, hey, this following me thing, being honorably relational with me, I'm going to use this term forever now.
Yeah.
being honorably relational with me can't be contained in a series of laws. It just can't.
So, and what was can you clarify what's the response Moses had?
Oh yeah. So then Moses affords an opportunity for these people who were ceremonially unclean.
Do we miss the time of Passover because we're not?
Yeah, it's like, no.
We're not fit for that particular calendar.
No,
it gets pushed back.
It gets pushed back. I think they even allow them to do like some kind of Passover observance, but at a different time.
Which is super important because there's multiple things that can make you ceremonially unclean, which is very different.
It could be burying your dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
like,
so
for instance.
There's lots of things where it's like, okay, this is not the fit way to approach worship, but it doesn't have to do with sin.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
But where that becomes more significant is, if we keep tracking down the line, is like, okay, well, if there's provision for, okay, it's a week, you have lots of things where it takes, when they're talking about disease or in particular injuries or things like that, then there's hey, remove yourself from the camp. Someone will come and examine you 7 days or 14 days later. And if it looks like you're on the mend, take 7 more days and then come back. If you're not, take 7 more and we just kind of repeat or whatever. So there is provision for, hey, we can kick it down the road so that you can make your right observances towards the Lord.
So you can be
relational.
Honorably relational.
Now, another well, what if this particular circumstance? And then we get to things like, well, the woman with an emission of blood that lasted 13 years. What does that tell us about within her context? Well, she's not in community in the same way. She's not able to worship or make the proper observances for what seems a perpetual amount of time. And it's like, okay, the stakes now that we have the context of the law make that story go way, way up.
Oh, yeah.
So this isn't even an instance where we can say as like modern 2025 Protestant Christians where it's like, we don't need to look at the law.
Correct.
Because, well, if there is wisdom in there that overlaps into mine, then great. If there are things that don't, then never mind and try and navigate that Venn diagram or whatever. We must be examining it because it will inform us about later in the text.
100%. Now, let me caveat that statement just with one little asterisk, because we don't see anything in the New Testament about, for instance, don't boil your goat's kid.
Which is like here in 22.
It's like it's like really early on.
Yeah.
It feels like, so it feels like it should be really important or something like that. But yeah, we don't have moments like that. However, that's still one of the laws and it's a part of the total covenant package. So what do we do with that? Well, the question is how, when I come to the Bible, the question is not what are the answers so that I can make God like me. When we come to the Bible, we're trying to have God's character revealed to us. And a part of what the law is doing is it's revealing his character through revealing some of his wisdom. It's revealing his person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even if it doesn't have a particular New Testament application, I agree with everything you said, obviously. Right. I'm just saying that if it doesn't have a particular instance, then that's okay still, because there might be some particular context in their day where it does, oh my gosh, like look at the wisdom of God on display. How could you not walk through these people's land and go, there's so much wisdom among these people. Why? Where does it come from?
Which I think is maybe the foreshadowing of like, they will know you by your love for one another.
100%.
Where it's like, if you were walking through this nation
My
at
man.
that time, it would be so different than where you were around. Like I don't know how much longer we want to keep beating this drum, but that it would, their conduct
Yes.
towards
Yes.
what would be viewed as lower class or lower valued human individuals would be in such stark contrast that it would make you pause.
Yes.
But if I go to like the Roman mind, I mean, it's hard for me to think of, I guess I can think of that more than, let's say, the Syrian or the Babylonian mind or whatever.
Right.
But they just thought it was weird, right? I mean, they thought these Christians were just weird.
They sure did.
So I kind of think you guys are, I'm kind of stepping back and thinking, they probably just thought it was weird, although they should have thought it was weird, but go ahead. You disagree with that, Devin?
No, I don't disagree at all. I want to elaborate on that. So what Jim had just put in is that ancient Rome would look at us, or look at the early Christians, the first century Christians, and just think they were weird. No, the stakes are much, much higher than that.
Yeah.
Because the type of social conduct that the Christians are advocating for is in such stark contrast that it disrupts things,
An empire
economically and all these things, and that's also why, contrary to popular belief, is it a power move by the early Christians politically or whatever? Like, no, they get killed pretty quick for about 400 years. And so their conduct not only costs them their lives, but it also calls to account the conduct of the culture that they're living in.
Yeah, that's really good.
I guess so much so that it costs them their lives. So it's not just to like, oh, these Christians over here are odd in the way that they do their thing. It is so offensive that it costs them their life.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. So the Christians were not revolutionaries in the way we think of like the French Revolution or some modern ism that you want to attach to that. They're revolutionary in the sense that they are like almost pacifists and they don't rise up against the empire.
Well, and the active agents in that change, this is just fresh in my mind because of all that Philemon stuff we talked about earlier last year. The active agents in delivering that change, in that context specifically, about how do you conduct with slavery. We have 2 books within the Bible that give you pointedly examples of this is what this looks like. And that is delivered and communicated through a faithful follower in Christ who is also acknowledging that he is a slave. And so, anyways, first century Christians are
they're dangerous.
Gently flipping the table over.
But to the empire's viewpoint, they're not just weird, they're dangerous.
Yes.
Subversive. They're saying they don't like our gods. They're almost atheists.
Well, they call
They call them atheists because they only believed in one God. It's interesting. And yet the Christians, this is what's so startling about what Paul says. Be obedient to the empire. Be obedient to the authorities. God has put them in place around you. He doesn't say, rise up, grab your sword, fight the empire. But how does he arrive at that conclusion?
What undoes the empire is your conduct to your neighbor.
Yes. And he's adopting the way of exile, which we're going to get into as
that was good.
As we go. Yeah. So no, but okay. But let's use our modern.
The exiles were weird, right?
You got it. And even a true blue believer to some Christians will look weird. And I don't mean to make too hard a distinction there. You understand what I'm trying to say? There could be cultural Christians who profess faith in Christ, but are either lapsed in their observance or lapsed in their approach to God. So, and I'm not judging nobody's heart. I'm just talking about general traits or general patterns. Or there could be a Christian culture, a culture that has adopted largely the morality and worldview of Christianity, even if it doesn't possess a soul and know Jesus by faith. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? I have to use all these qualifiers. It's ridiculous. But but cultural Christianity would look in even at those who are truly devoted to Jesus, his disciples, his apprentices, his followers, and they'd go, yeah, that's kind of weird. They may not say they're dangerous, but it's because they share the same morality, at least in part. At least in part. They share mostly the same morality. Yeah, it's not a good thing to steal someone's stuff. Well, where did they get that from?
Yeah.
So
I want to say, gosh, you're so weird. You're just taking this Christianity thing to such an extreme.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's like, well,
That's, I think, kind of the bit where it talks about the cross being an offense,
It
where
is.
it's like, okay, well,
Thank
why
you.
can't it just be
Yeah.
enough to do the good Christian things? Where it's like, well, Christian culture minus a relationship with Jesus, I can feel very good about my conduct. But once Christ forces me to examine my own heart, it's like, okay, that again forces me to the foot of the cross and puts in front of my face that I am in need
Correct.
of a savior, which is not a horrifying revelation alone. It is also why it's called the good news.
Yeah. Yeah, and so let's use that framework for a minute. What if someone looks at me and thinks I'm weird? Well, okay. It becomes an opportunity for me as the weird one to do exactly what Deuteronomy will talk about. What Exodus has already said. When they ask you why you do these things, you can then tell them. I mean, there's an opportunity to be those who intentionally declare the gospel and the wisdom of God by the ways that we live in because again, the way that we live ought to come from, our hearts, as we talked about in the tongue series. So yeah, I mean, we could keep beating this drum, I think, but yeah, but man, great. That's a great question. Let's hold on. Let's zipper back to what we talked about.
Well, can I just kind of loop that all together?
Yes,
We're
please,
talking
please.
our context. We're talking what did that look like for first century Christians, and what does it look like for this nation who has now been given the terms of the covenantal relationship.
Yeah.
None of those are outside or distinct from each other in the way that it is setting you up for right relationship between your neighbor and God in a way that is in stark contrast to the culture around you.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that maybe I think that there's something to be said for, and I'm not trying to like shame anybody or whatever. And I've gotten this too. If I'm talking to someone like, oh, I didn't know you were a Christian. I'm like, well, that never feels good.
Yeah.
That never feels good.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I need to look at my life. Or if someone's like, I could tell you were a Christian.
Right.
Or it's like, okay, there are, some things that are very small and don't matter that much, but do signal to people that there is something different about the way that you live,
100%.
And I think that there is something to be said with whatever those categories are.
Yeah.
Your life should look different, like a flashlight looks different than a dark room for a very specific reason.
Correct.
And so,
Correct. Well, and there's conduct that Jesus gives us. I mean, it's not like we're devoid of an ethic in the New Testament simply because the law is fulfilled in these central ideas. Like there's still an ethic that we're supposed to live by.
Yeah.
But again, that's wisdom and instruction. We're not supposed to go back and be first century Jews in a Roman Empire who can go the second mile or give someone our cloak.
Yeah.
Because Jesus said so. No, we apply that principally. This is what it keeps coming back to.
My neighbor to the south is a believer, and we just kind of figured it out shortly within moving in, which is kind of cool with what all you were saying. So.
Yeah, man. The fruit of the Spirit. My goodness, it's supposed to be the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Like, against such thing, there is no law.
Wow.
So it's like if I'm displaying that as a result of my faith and my love for God, then people should see it,
Some of it may just be a way of speaking,
it can be simple.
Blessed, do Christians maybe use that expression perhaps more than non-Christians?
That was something that, with what you just said about the fruits of the Spirit.
I'm getting off track.
It's okay. It's okay.
With the fruits of the Spirit, I remember years and years and years ago, I was listening into at another church we used to attend, a Sunday school teacher talking to these kids and saying, like, do you think that God is pleased when you uphold the 10 Commandments, or when your life looks like the fruits of the Spirit? And I remember being like a young adult and listening to this like children's lesson and just feeling like, ah, that's it. That's it, you know? So not that they are completely disconnected, but that
No.
the law should be producing something in me.
But one is foundation for the other.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fruits of the Spirit are the foundation of the law. Like we don't have laws if there's no love.
Which
There's no reason.
we talked about this last week in the recording that we lost everything in.
Yeah.
So just to cap it off, laws, like you mentioned, speed laws and all that stuff, it's not there arbitrarily. It's there to keep you safe and the other
others.
people around.
Yeah. There's a purpose.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a good way to, round all that up.
Thanks for supporting us by watching. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications when we post.
I'm going to go next today.
I have a question about chapter 23.
Okay.
Verse 20. I'll start reading part of it. We don't have to make it through the rest of the chapter or anything. But behold, I guess the head of this chunk in my Bible says the conquest of Canaan promised.
Okay.
So we're headed towards, hey, you guys are going to get towards a land soon, right? Is that where this is heading in the narrative?
Yeah.
So, verse 20, behold, I send an angel before you to guard you on your way and to bring you to the place that I prepared. Pay careful attention to him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if you carefully obey his voice and do all that I say, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversary. Yep. And it goes on and on and on. Who is this, David?
That's a great setup.
Yeah.
I think we have indication because we've got two indicators here. Will not forgive your rebellion, and my name is in him. Name is identity. Name is power. Name is presence. So I think again we have an instance of the angel of the Lord, which we've identified as the pre-incarnate Jesus, second person of the Trinity.
Okay. I just wanted to point that one out because it's in that section that we kind of skipped over.
Now I'm glad you pointed out because we're going to be talking about it in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, good.
Because it also this particular language also comes back up again in chapters 32, 33, and 34.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's important.
Okay.
And it's really important. And again, we need to keep pointing these moments out because they're super important.
Okay, I'm glad because can I jump back a few chapters and ask you about another one? Okay, this is something my wife leaned over and told me on Sunday. You had referenced when Moses strikes the rock.
Yes.
And the water comes out. And I'm, not being nitpicky about the way you worded it or anything like that, but if I remember correctly, or maybe it was off camera or whatever, but we were talking and there was for whatever reason, that people seem to assume that Moses has some sort of power that is able to do this.
Yeah.
And my wife had pointed out to me in chapter 17 that I'm wondering who's in view of this, or is it just saying that the Lord is with Moses when this happens? But just at the head of chapter 17, all the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of sin by stages according to the commandments of the Lord and camped at Rephidim?
Yeah, Rephidim, I think. You got it.
But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people grumbled against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." And the Lord said to Moses, "Pass on before the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take your staff, the staff which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you will strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people will drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders in Israel. Is this just the Lord saying, "I will be with you while you carry out this action," or "I will stand there before the rock, before you and the elders while you do this"? Yeah, exactly.
I've never noticed it.
You just made the exact same face I did.
I don't know. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock and water will come out for
Because
the people to drink.
I think it,
Yeah.
it doesn't change the narrative, but it informs the narrative if this is a moment of people's dependence on Moses to provide, or if God again shows up and provides,
I will stand there before you.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah, it could easily be the pre-incarnate it could easily be another pre-incarnate Jesus moment.
It does seem like one of those ones where it's just not quite
Yeah, it's
clear
kind of
enough.
ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of ambiguous there. But the I would wonder what the verb stand is.
Mm-hmm.
I will stand before you. I would wonder what that verb is, and if that has some kind of like,
Okay.
like if there's any other way of thinking about that word.
That's a good way
If I will
to put it.
position
Okay.
before you, or if I will, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I got you 100%. We could put that in contrast to something you touched on Sunday when they go up the mountain and they see the feet.
Correct.
Yeah, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, a person has feet.
A person has feet.
Is a little more solid.
Correct.
Quite a bit more solid.
And also, you've hit me with this about the Isaiah 6 moment.
Yeah.
Guess what that links to?
To the feet moment?
Feet and lapis lazuli and
Okay.
anyway, we
All right.
let's not give any more away on that. I just
We're
thought
never
that
gonna get there though. It's so far out. All right. Stay tuned.
Well, good job, Alicia. That's great.
My wife, she's real sharp.
That's great to notice that, man. I didn't even notice that. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a good
I also didn't preach those passages, so I read them, but I didn't read them like I do when I'm slowing way down to preach through.
We're trying to point out these.
I'll tell you what, man.
Moments.
When I'm writing and I'm trying to deliver the message, there's something that forces me to slow down so much more than I would if I'm just by myself.
Huh.
And some of the insights that I've gathered over the last couple weeks have just been a result of me stopping to write about it. I don't know. Maybe
do you think that
a spiritual insight in that? You know,
We would call it sitting with the passage. Sitting with the.
I like that. Sitting with one of the former pastors you had called it sitting with the passage. I love that.
That's good.
That's good.
That's way better than what I was gonna say, Jim. Good job, Jim.
What else we got for today?
Man, okay. I have questions about chapter 24.
Okay.
Where did we stop at 24 on Sunday, or did we make it 25? I don't really remember.
No, we
Okay.
we just did 24.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I don't want to go ahead of there yet.
Okay.
Because I feel like things get super. Anyways, the covenant confirmed.
Yes.
I'm just going to start at the top of 24. Then he said to Moses, "Come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel." Why are the first two guys mentioned and then just 70 elders? Am I forgetting something about Nadab and Abihu?
They are they seem to be aides in some way, and I don't know if they're just prominent among the 70 elders. I'm not sure that we have like enough data to really like assert who they are or what they are, but they show up with the Battle of the Amalekites.
Okay.
They're the ones holding Moses' arms up.
Oh, okay.
So we've seen them before.
Okay.
So maybe they're commanders. Maybe they're just a part of the 70 or some of the 70 elders. Although it seems like they're distinct from the 70 elders. So yeah, I don't know who these dudes are.
Okay.
Maybe I should look that up.
Okay.
Because they show up a few times.
Okay. Interesting. I just want to know more about them. Okay.
Could be an interesting sermon.
Could. I'm gonna look it up, man.
So, not too long after that.
Yeah.
Verses 9 and 10. Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, 70 elders, they go up. Verse 10, they saw the God of Israel. There was under his feet as it were a pavement of sapphire stone, like the very heaven for clearness, is what mine says. Yours said lapis lazuli.
Yeah, lapis lazuli, like a blue, like a blue stone.
So my brain, this isn't super important or anything. My brain was like, well, why the declaration of what's under his feet? And I was trying to think of like what all could that mean? And like I'm an art guy, I'm an artist. And we're about to, as we go into chapters 25 and forward, then they're going to start talking about the adornment of a sanctuary and all that stuff.
Yep.
You know, what things look like. And this kind of seemed like the first instance of a like, well, look at this thing that's under the feet of God. And the only thing I could really think of is like, okay, I know at the very least in like medieval Renaissance era, which is far past this stuff, but things in a particular blue hue, blue's a hard color to come by. And it's a great way that we like date certain artifacts is if they have particular pigments in them that don't fit. It gives you a view into the timeline. So I guess what I was wondering, is this just a declaration of like, oh, look, this thing that's of high value because blue is a hard dye to make. Is it, well, under his feet, you know, in the same way that we could talk about like streets paved with gold and all that stuff. Does that speak to the splendor of a place or the commonplace of something that we would view as value that's now under the feet, you know? What's the lapis lazuli thing for? What is that?
Yeah, I think it signifies something to do with the skies.
Okay.
And it's a precious stone that sparkles and all those things. And so I think it has some attachment to the skies. So,
the skies in the sense that like he is above all things.
Yeah, so like
the earth is his literal footstool type of deal. Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I think that's a part of the cultural context. It also shows up in one of the stones on the ephod. So I'm not sure if there's a particular linkage though, about him standing on that.
Okay.
I think more than anything, it's just look how powerful God is that even these precious stones are just stuff he walks on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's at least that.
So
if not more.
I guess that Jim?
So I think, and I haven't listened to this Bible Project podcast, but there's one that talks about when we read Kingdom of Heaven, it's Kingdom of the Skies.
Kingdom of the Skies.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's what I was gonna say.
So it makes you think, this guy's walking on the sky looking stones, or at least something we're associating with that. Yeah. I need to do some more research on the lapis lazuli. It shows up quite a bit actually. In the ephod, it shows up later in the prophets, it shows up later in Revelation. I mean, it's kind of all over the place.
Okay, because I have a lot of questions when it comes to I guess the adornment of things, or we spoke earlier about when it comes to law and purification practices, or what was the word that we used? Unclean, clean or unclean.
Yeah.
That those don't necessarily have to do with sin. It can, but that like this is what's fit for the presence of God. And I think I have a lot of questions about the adornment of things, as far as, is there symbolic significance to every one of these things, or is it just aesthetic preference, or, what is God accomplishing? And I know
well, how about this? I think it comes back to how is it referenced? How often does it receive references, and are there images associated and then tied to those references? I think we have to rely on the biblical data to indicate whether or not something has a particular import, if that makes sense, or has a particular resonance, or hyperlink, across
throughout the rest
texts.
of the narrative. Okay.
Yeah, so I think we have to look for usage and pattern, and then also context of the story. Like, the Bible talks about owls. Like, does that then mean that every owl we see means wilderness, desert, death? You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it can mean that, but like the context will help indicate some of that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
Not every lion is a good lion in the Bible.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it kind of depends.
Yeah.
Does that answer? I don't know if
no.
that is
Yeah.
helpful
No. That is helpful. So, no, I was just latched onto the last thing you said about the lions. I was like, that's a really good point.
Some of the lions are bad and
Yeah,
scary,
real
and
bad.
they're ripping people apart. Now, I'm reading something about Heiser here, who does think that there's something important about the lapis lazuli.
Give it to me.
He says it has something to do with the cosmic, with the divine council.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
He says it indicates something about divine council, which actually would make sense. And I can't even touch on it right now.
Okay, I was gonna say, are you gonna read it, or are we gonna have to come
No,
back?
because I'm just using
Okay.
this as a reference. I need to actually verify if that's
Well,
correct.
let's save it because we're gonna go into a lot of sanctuary type of.
Lord, prepare.
Yeah. There's all kinds of build this and make this, and that's gonna be great.
And
So, if we could,
yeah,
and I mean you, figure out the answer to that by the time we get there.
yeah.
Okay,
I'll take a look.
cool,
I'll take a
thanks.
look. I'll see what
try
what
to,
the smarter
but-
people have to say about it.
So related to clean and unclean, leprosy was an unclean thing.
Right.
And it was presumably contagious. The presumption is
Correct.
contagious.
At least of the day.
And
Yeah.
there's some protection around keeping
Yes.
lepers separate, right?
Yeah.
But have you ever read anything about, so when women are menstruating, they're
Correct.
considered unclean.
Correct.
Have you ever heard anything about, quote unquote, why we have, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Actually, there's a fantastic Bible Project episode about this.
Really good question. Do you want to direct him to that, or do you want to repeat it and give an answer?
I want to direct them to that because I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing.
Okay.
So
They are very careful in their language in that episode, and it's highly illuminating.
Because, I mean, once
Let me look
a
it
month,
up.
right? You can't do past, right? You were talking about that.
yes,
You can't
and they do a great job.
Passover, during Yom Kippur.
So to repeat Jim's question,
Yeah.
when it comes to clean and unclean, that there are things like leprosy, which would be, I think, a little bit more obvious to us why you would want to be separate. There's contagion and all that stuff. But also considered unclean, Jim was saying, when a woman is menstruating. And the question of, well, why? Why is that unclean?
It looks like it's Leviticus, A New Way to Be Human is the name of Leviticus, A New Way to Be Human is the name of the episode.
Leviticus and you is the Bible
Yeah.
Project episode.
Yeah. So it looks like they're in the Leviticus series, and then they're talking particularly about some of the purity laws. And what it means for unclean and unclean. Sorry, say your question to me again.
No, that I was repeating Jim's question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you want to give a cap answer to that, or just
Oh, my.
just the direct?
Let me see if I can be brief. Life is in the blood. The stuff that comes out of you seems to keep you alive.
And that
'Cause-
would apply to
certainly
multiple
does. Mine does.
bodily fluids. You know.
Yeah.
So
And also life is passed in certain bodily fluids. So it's not just women's menstruation, for instance. It's also men's emission. So there's multiple kinds of fluids that that indicate. So again, there's something about life contained in what's inside of our bodies. It's intuitive to think about it that way. If I lose a lot of this stuff, I'm not going to stick around. And so then there's an attachment to its holiness and its purity and its need to remain pure. So it's not that women are dirty because
Yeah.
they menstruate. It's that they're to be particularly honored in this time where, and gosh, I'm going to start saying the wrong words. So just watch or listen to some of those episodes that they do on the podcast, because they handle it really, really well. And I walked away from that episode. Clearly, I don't have all the particulars down, but I walked away from that episode really encouraged by what they had to say about it, and really, really like interested by the way that they looked at it. It has something to do though with purity, God's holiness, and the.
Could I put it this way?
Blood is pure in your body, but once it leaves, it's not pure.
Well, it's like you're letting life out.
W-
You know what I mean? It's
Is it fit to bring, in a bodily sense, the things that sustain or produce life
yeah.
to the feet of the one who actually gives life?
Sustains
and all that
life.
stuff?
That could be interesting. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, it's a great question around, women's menstruation, clean,
Right.
unclean, and, making that distinction. But this also isn't outside of what we just saw when
Right.
God says, come to the foot of the mountain. He
Yeah.
also gives the people instruction to like abstain from sexual relations
Correct.
before they come to the meeting place.
Correct.
So, if we wanted to do that same inference, we'd be like, well, is that bad? Is that sinful? Is that why they? Well, no, of course not. But to be fit to, or not even be fit to appropriately approach God, there are particular terms.
And we might not even know, right? I mean, I've done a
Correct.
sermon series on Exodus where it's like the mountain's nuclear. Like the power of God is so immense.
Yeah,
Would there be birth defects? There's a nuclear
Wow.
power?
Hey, interesting.
We don't know.
Interesting. Okay, here's just a summation. Blood and emission are life and death symbols. Okay, so there's an appropriate place in which life and death are supposed to be dealt with. Okay, a reminder of humanity, which I think is really interesting. When we experience these things, these things are not bad in and of themselves. In other words, a woman is not morally impure.
Sure.
She's ritually impure. And it's not as though she's too gross to go in God's presence, but she and everyone else, men too, need to be reminded that we're mortal and that we have limitations, and that as a result of the way that our world is outside of Eden, there are complications, there are issues, and there are problems that we have to face. And so anyway, I and then they say there's the problem is with sacred space, not with people. So I like that phrasing.
That's kind of what I was thinking as
Yeah.
far as,
The people aren't the problem.
how do you approach the holy?
Yeah. Yeah, and you in not I don't know why. I don't know why necessarily a man's emission or a woman's menstruation are particular. I suspect though, because the story so revolves around children and around being fruitful and multiplying, and around a genital covenant ceremony called circumcision, and one who will be born of woman who will strike the serpent. Like there's so much, reproduction and fruitfulness talk that like, and covenant that like circles around, centers around blood and the passing on of seed. Like
Exactly. So I'm even thinking when a woman menstruates, there's an egg expelled that
Right.
didn't live, right?
Right.
That is gonna die. So
I
then-
guess that's there's some truth to that.
That is a good point.
And so maybe there's something contained in like, in this cycle where that occurs, death is occurring.
And they wouldn't have even known that, right? I mean,
Right.
They wouldn't have known that.
Or maybe they
they
would have intuited.
Yeah.
Or maybe they would have intuited that, if I'm not having this, then I'm pregnant. If I'm having this, I'm not pregnant, So like, yeah, there's something deep. There's something really deep here that doesn't impinge on the identity of women or the identity of men
That doesn't demean women.
at all, but is calling us into something, a vision of life that's greater than I think we have the our full hands to grasp around. I certainly don't at this moment, and need to do some more research on. That's a good question though, Jim. And have to listen to that Bible project. I'll have to listen along with you, and then we'll come back with our findings. That could be interesting. Sometimes it's good to have, and see what other resources they would indicate too. We don't just blindly follow them. I love their stuff because they take the breadth of learning and they collapse it down to a bite-sized moment. But they also offer you, hey, here's 5 books in this depth if you want to go deeper, which I've done as well too. So that's been really helpful. Anyway. Good. Where the heck are we? We're in 24 right now?
Yeah, we were in 24. Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of ready to land the plane.
Same.
It's kind of a shorter episode for us,
but good conversation.
yeah.
Okay, you were mentioning we're gonna get to like some of these other laws that are included in here. We're gonna get to tabernacle and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
What's happening as we I'm about to skip over all these chapters.
Okay. Well, if that's the case,
Next week we can really hit them. Is what
okay.
I'm saying.
Okay, next week.
Yeah, the following cutting room floor, we will have plenty of time to look at 25, 26, 27,
right.
28, 20.
You know I got questions.
Yeah, and all of this is really important. I've got both a general statement on all of these and also some specific things that are really fascinating.
Okay.
But yeah, we're coming to 30 to 32 really fast.
Nice.
I keep telling people we're going to go really quickly, and eventually we will.
All right.
But I've already started writing the following sermon for chapters 33 and 34 because I was unable to get out of chapter 32.
Okay.
So in this coming sermon.
All right. So next episode we'll have a good 9 chapters.
Yes. That we can really look at in some more depth. Because they're different than maybe some of the things we've covered before, like slavery and those topics that we've really stressed a lot of and made a lot of emphasis on those. But we haven't really looked at a lot of like temple observance and tabernacle observance and all that. But we'll have time to do that after because I'm only doing 1 chapter. Man, this has been a fun series to do. I really appreciate these conversations. Thank you guys for coming and being a part. This is so much fun. I love this so much. As always, questions that you might have, shoot, there's probably a lot of questions that get generated from this conversation that we've been having. Send them on in the chat. We would love to communicate back and forth. And also if you've got, particular questions that maybe you don't want to put in public, but would want to email, you can absolutely email those to me or to the office. Would love to field those questions or just, pull my arm, on a Sunday morning and let's gather together and talk, or maybe find a time to have some coffee and talk and hang out. We definitely want to do that. As always, thanks for watching and listening to the cutting room floor. We love doing these. We hope that you enjoy them as well.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Cutting Room Floor. If you have any questions or want to know more about what we discussed, send an email to Church on the Rock. Like and subscribe to receive notifications for any videos we post. May God bless your study of His Word.